Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. On this show, as you know, if you're a regular listener, I try to bring in people who are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, corporate leaders, people who are doing really cool things in their career, who maybe found that they needed to do their own thing to be totally fulfilled. We've been doing the show for 3.5 years. It still blows me away. This is episode number 346. And those of you who listen regularly, I tell the story once in a while. I thought I would do 50 shows and then my experiment into the podcast world would be over. But it took me a couple hundred shows before I really started to figure out how to do this, how to have conversations, how to be a real interviewer. And now somewhere as we're closing in on that 350 mark, I'm having more fun than I've ever had. And the response from y'all who listen to this show, God, it just keeps getting better. So if you like Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do, please tweet me at Cool Podcast, go onto iTunes and leave a review, or just send me an email and let me know that you listen and what you like about the different guests. So today, I'm excited because we have the CEO of a fast-growing company that's been around a while but is doing really, really interesting things. And we talk to a lot of small business owners on this show, and I get excited when I get to talk to somebody who is out there fighting the big fight against some massive corporations. So today's guest, I looked him up before we got online. He has what truly I would call sort of a rags to riches story. He grew up kind of poor, then he's now a Harvard MBA, and he is the CEO of a company called Zevia, which is, I don't know, I'll let him sort of describe it, but it's more of a healthy alternative to soft drinks, and they're knocking down the door on Coke and Pepsi, and they're really making some strides on this thing. So Paddy Spence is our guest today, and I can't wait to find out about sort of his journey as an entrepreneur and what cool things he's doing. Hey, Paddy, welcome to Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do.
Thanks so much, Tom. It's great to be here today.
So you started out, you went to college and then you worked for a couple years and you went and got your MBA and you went to that school, somebody might have heard of it, Harvard, to get that. And then you started into sort of the health food world. You went to work for what became a major brand, but why don't you kind of tell your story? Where did you start off and where are you now?
Absolutely. So as you said, Tom, I got my MBA back in 1992, and honestly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise. What I did know is I wanted to run my own business eventually, and I knew I wanted it to be in an area that I could feel passionate about. And so for me, that's kind of how my process starts is find your personal passion. Where does that overlap with business opportunity? And that's for me going to be the best.
Yeah, and so many people who come on this show talk about the fact that you've really got to find something you like to do, or this journey is just harder.
Well, that's exactly right. And what's fascinating about that is you don't exactly know where that's going to take you. So for me, I was very active at the time. I was doing triathlons and fascinated with that endurance sports world. And I actually heavily pursued opportunities in that world and looked into bike companies and apparel companies. Long story short, one of the things I learned, and thank goodness an executive in one of those companies was wise enough to tell me, the bike industry is a really tough industry. It's tough to differentiate your product. Everyone's selling the same bike with the same components. And so somehow I was dissuaded from that and fell into this opportunity at Kashi. And it was closely aligned with my personal views in terms of taking care of myself and what I put into my body. And so ultimately I was able to find something where that passion really, I was able to leverage that and use that every day at work.
So Kashi was a pretty small company when you joined. I mean, we all now know it. We go to the grocery store and it's sitting there on the cereal aisle and a lot of other products that they have. But at the time, what did you say, 7 people?
It was 7 people and about $3 million in sales. And, one of the things that leads to a great lesson, at least for me, I didn't know it at the time, but I tell people, if you want to start a business, work in a small business. Honestly, you're not going to learn the process and what you need to do to run a business if you're working in a gigantic corporation. And you certainly may learn structured elements of that, but getting your hands dirty, wearing a lot of hats, and just kind of trying to grow a small business is just amazing experience. And so for me at Kashi, it was one of those early brands, one of the first brands, frankly, to cross over from kind of being a niche product into the mainstream consciousness. And that process involved a ton of test and learn, a ton of innovation, and a ton of just kind of trying things to see what would work. So in terms of learning to be an entrepreneur, it was just an incredible sandbox.
Well, you bring up test and try. That's something that I've been talking a lot about. I'm a professional speaker and trainer, and I go into companies and I talk about a program I have called the Paradox of Potential. And one of the big sort of learning lessons that I've got from interviewing 300 people about reaching potential is people say you have to try new things. And so often, especially when things are working, we don't want to try new things. And so I've been doing that in my personal life. I know this is a little off the thing, but the last 3 weeks, I've gone and done stand-up comedy 6 times. And I'm not gunning for, Kevin Hart. He's not worried about job security by any means. But back when I was in my 20s, back in the 80s and early 90s, I always talked about wanting to go do that. And I never did. I never had the guts. It always seemed scary. What if everybody didn't laugh? And all of a sudden, I found out that, it is scary and it's hard. And of all the mediums, I'm a professional speaker. I've talked to 800 different groups. I will tell you, this was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And yet, by trying it, I immediately saw some differences in what I was doing on a regular basis. So I want to go back to this idea where you talked about that Kashi was trying new things. What were some of the lessons you learned early on about the fact that if you break a few molds and try new things, it helps you with your company and your career?
Well, absolutely. And Tom, I think you've touched on something that's so key to me, not just in my career, but also in my personal life, is this idea of what we call the growth mindset. And I would encourage any of your listeners to go look into Carol Dweck.
Great book.
She wrote an amazing book about this growth mindset. And essentially, as you said, it's this concept that we're not successful because of talent or the things we were born with, but instead because of learning, hard work, and this opportunity to continually learn and continually improve. And it's really incredible in this world how many people abandon that mindset. Even those who are extremely accomplished, people go through school, they get their PhD, and you think, wow, this is someone who's devoted to and committed to learning, and yet then they stop learning for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And so I'm a huge proponent of that. And as you noted, part of that is all about adopting a beginner's mindset. So like you, I did something brand new in the last year. Last year at age 50, I decided I was going to start skateboarding for the first time. I'd never stepped on a skateboard. My 6 and 8-year-old daughters are doing it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. And what a humbling experience, right? And I'm not putting Tony Hawk out of a job anytime soon, but just the process of embracing that's awesome. That challenge, that learning, that difficulty, so rewarding.
Yeah, all I did was stand up in front of 6 open mic night crowds. Getting on a skateboard, I'd be worried about breaking my hip. You and I are almost the exact same age. I'm 51. And so it's this idea of trying new things. And I call my whole program that I work with the Paradox of Potential. And you hit right on it. Hey, Bob goes and gets his MBA or his PhD. Wow, oh my God, the sky's the limit. He has so much potential. And then you look at him 10 years later and he's sort of stuck in the high middle somewhere. He never, became the CEO. He never figured out where to take it to the next level. And that happens so often in our careers and in our companies. So I want to take you sort of fast forward to where you are today. I know you did some other things in between, but 7 or 8 years ago, you bought this soft drink company, and it's more of a healthy soft drink. And so I want to hear about that. So tell us a little bit about where you are now and the trying new things and going for the potential with Zevia.
Absolutely. Well, so, along the way, one of the things, Tom, that occurred, that happened to me was that in 2001, my wife and I went off of sugar. And so I'd been in the natural and organic industry almost a decade at that point. Thought I was a healthy guy, was doing triathlons, was very active. And I did a food journal, and I realized one day I was getting literally 250 grams of sugar a day. And it was all from things that I thought were healthy, protein smoothies and energy bars and sugar in my tea, literally 1,000 calories a day just from sugar.
Oh my God.
So we went off of sugar cold turkey back in 2001, started using stevia. And going back to what I mentioned about this idea where personal passion can overlap with business opportunity, that's really where the magic occurs. And so for me, I was at the Whole Foods store looking at the shelf and thinking, what am I going to do next? And I saw this product on the shelf and I thought, gosh, I'm a sample of one, but I would drink this. This could be an incredible opportunity. And what it was Zevia had been the first company to take carbonated soft drink, soda, and instead of using sugar or high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners like aspartame, they said, hey, let's use a simple plant-based sweetener, stevia, to provide that sweetness. We can have the bubbles, the flavor, the enjoyment that carbonated soft drinks have, but let's just use a better-for-you sweetener. So I bought that company back in 2010, and over the last 8 years, what's really evolved dramatically is that Americans have woken up to what I realized 17 years ago, that sugar is killing us.
So sugar's the devil, and nobody told us.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. I mean, certainly we know sugar is closely related, or the excess consumption of sugar is related to diabetes and obesity. But there is now increasing evidence that many, if not most, disease states are occurring in part because of inflammation at the cellular level caused by excess consumption of sugar. So they're finding links between sugar consumption and cancer, dementia, heart disease. And so really, when you look at it, it's one of the defining public health challenges of our lifetime. And if I can play a part in helping change people's lives by helping get them off sugar, what an incredible journey.
So, Paddy, we're not going to go deep into this, but we could do a whole show on this, because 2 years ago, I went off sugar and processed wheat. And the reason is that I read a thing that said that those were the two things that made middle-aged men carry sort of a gut. And I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And I'd never run in my life. I was kind of that lame-o slow kid, and I had a big sweet tooth. And so over the years, I'd put in 30 plus pounds. And so 2 years ago, I made this commitment. And for Lent, I gave up all sugar and wheat. And I left myself a little bit of caveat, and that was 15 grams of sugar a day if it came in a bottle, a box, a can, or a bag, and then no wheat. And I lost like 12 pounds in 40 days without exercise. I hadn't started the running yet. I didn't start the running till Easter came. And I lost like 12 plus pounds just from doing that. But what I learned was I'd never read a label in my life, and I was eating things I thought were healthy. I was eating these. I'm on airplanes a lot because I speak all over the country. And sometimes you get stuck on a tarmac, and I don't want to be hangry the whole time. So I would carry these power bars, and I realized they had 26 grams of sugar in them. And I was like, oh my God, that's almost double what I'm allowed all day for my snack. So, so I'm very interested in what you've done, and I'm very interested in your product, because soft drinks were one of the things that had to go, because that was like a week's worth in a soft drink.
Well, exactly. And as we discussed earlier, same kind of that whole continuous improvement mindset is something you can apply to your dietary habits, right? So to your point, start off with refined sugar, start off with added sugar. And then as that you get more comfortable with that, you can continue dialing this back. And so in our household, we limit ourselves to 50 grams of any kind of sugar. And so that means we moderate our fruit consumption, we moderate our dairy, and we just make those trade-offs, and we make informed choices. And so what's so great about a brand like Zevia is that 47% of the average American's added sugar consumption is from beverages. So if you only swapped out sugary beverages for Zevia, you've literally cut your sugar in half. And like we said, that's for the first step. And then you just continue from there, continue improving, continue optimizing. And that's just a strategy that's going to help you win in any aspect of life.
So 8 years ago, you took this company over. And what was the situation when you bought it? And what's the situation today?
Well, so 8 years ago, it was a small startup started by a husband and wife who were entrepreneurs. They were actually attorneys. And Jessica had gone off of Diet Coke. She'd been a Diet Coke addict and said, gosh, one can's not going to kill me, but I just don't feel good about how much artificial sweeteners I'm getting in this Diet Coke product. So they looked for a better way. It didn't exist, and they created Zevia.
Nice.
I bought the brand when it was a small startup, and, having seen and worked with many brands that had crossed over into the mainstream consciousness, I had a number of elements that I was focused on. First of all, really just understanding the consumer. Are they like me? Why do they purchase this product? And then improving the product, improving the messaging, improving the packaging to where we are today, which is really the leading and first and still the dominant brand of zero-calorie soft drinks sweetened with a plant-based sweetener, stevia.
So now that you've, been in, really since your days working, for the cereal company, you've really been an entrepreneur, even though it wasn't your company. I mean, when you're on a team of 7, you're an entrepreneur, in my opinion. And so what do you love about the life of being an entrepreneur? You said you always wanted to start your own business. What do you love about it?
Well, I think what I love about it is, again, being able to take my passion and my personal interests and put those to work every day. I'm a passionate person, and if I don't love something, it's tough for me to kind of summon all my focus and my energy. And frankly, what we're doing here at Zevia, we are literally changing people's lives. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't get 3 to 5 emails from someone saying, wow, I discovered this beverage and you've changed my life. Mm-hmm. I have a young family and now my kids can drink soda. I'm a kidney patient and I couldn't drink cola. I'm a competitive athlete. And so these stories are just so incredible. And that's what gets me excited every day to go to work. Changing people's lives and doing it in a way that's positive and frankly fun. I mean, one of the things I tell people is life is uncertain. We have no idea what's in store for us. And so let's just make sure that every single day we're getting every last bit of excitement, enjoyment, and fun out of each day. And if you can't have fun selling soda, what are you thinking, right?
That's right. It's like I got to interview the CEO of a chocolate company, and it was like obviously, kind of in not the same lines of what you're doing, but at the same time, it was like, how can you not have fun if you're running a chocolate company? So it's like, although there was a lot of sugar involved in his job, but just the same.
Well, I mean, I tell people, I get to go to grocery stores, drink a ton of 0-calorie beverages, and help people become more healthy. It doesn't get much more fun than that for me.
So you grew up, you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, and yet, you went on to get an MBA and you've gone on to run this extremely successful company. I think entrepreneurship can really be sort of the ticket to the American dream. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. And I think, frankly, one of the things about entrepreneurship that I think is so transformative, frankly, is that it forces you to really think about what's important. And, I've talked a bunch about passion. Let's face it, the life of an entrepreneur is uncertain, unstable. And if you don't love what you're doing, it's probably not going to go so well. I've been in jobs, and we've all been in jobs where you just don't love what you're doing. But you come to work every day, and you say, gosh, if I can just get out of here 5:30 or whatever time it is, I can forget about all this. Well, the life of an entrepreneur is not like that. You can't forget about it when you go home. There's no such thing as leaving your job at home. And so that forces you to really, really think about what's important. And so for me, entrepreneurship has been transformative because it's allowed me to really distill my priorities. What does success mean? And so many people say, gosh, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to get rich. Well, very quickly you realize if that's your motivation, you're probably not going to stick with it for long. For me, I've talked about changing people's lives. That's the most important thing. Spending time with my family, and being in a structure and a job that allows me the flexibility to be home every single night for dinner, unless I'm traveling for business.
Sure.
Those are the priorities, to have the opportunity to work out, not as much as I'd like, but at least sometimes, and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So, that's what's exciting about being an entrepreneur, and frankly, building a team of people whose lives are also sustained and changed by the venture. I mean, we have families that have grown up now over the last 8 years within the Zevia world. And that's just incredible and exciting, not just our own family of employees, but also consumers out there, kids who started drinking our product when they were 5 and now they're 13.
So what advice do you have for somebody who's thinking, I have that same calling to do my own thing, but maybe they don't have a Harvard MBA? What advice do you have for someone who wants to go start something or buy an existing company or just get themselves into their own path?
Yeah, well, certainly it's a great question. And the first thing I tell you, Tom, is the MBA is beyond optional. When I was a year out of school, I thought it was, the be all and end all. Now, 25 years out, it seldom is referenced or comes up or is something I use every day. So it's about experience. And again, it's about continuous improvement. I don't care if you're a high school dropout. If you continue to learn and improve and optimize your own skills and learn about yourself, you will be a really formidable, impressive individual 20 years down the road. And so, it's that whole mindset. And so what I tell people is, if you want to become an entrepreneur, figure out first what you like doing and what you're best at. Is it a large organization or a small one? Do you like selling, or do you like sitting in a room analyzing things? Do you like manufacturing, or do you like services? And so getting a better sense of those types of things. What type of lifestyle do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a city or out in the country? Do you want to be geographically in a specific place or not? And so the more time you can spend learning about yourself and what makes you tick and where you respond the best, the better you're going to do in a specific environment. And so I always tell people, try a lot of things out. Go work in a big company, see what that's like. Work in a small company, work in different industries, and better understand what makes yourself tick, because that's going to be the key to unleashing your talent.
So do you think, now that you've crossed that 50 mark, do you think that you're better off or to start young, or can you start at any age? Because I was in my 40s when I launched this business as a speaker and a trainer, but I look back and say, God, I wish I had started this when I was 25. I wish I'd had the guts to go and do, my dream when I was younger. And yet on the flip side, I also have sort of a pledge to myself that I'm just going to make age 50 to 75 the best years of my life. And so I kind of think I'm better suited, to be growing something now, because I don't care what people think quite as much.
Well, that's exactly right. I think, it's about your dedication to improving and your commitment to that. I tell people, I knew zero about beverages 8 years ago, except that I drank them, right? I had no qualifications whatsoever to run a beverage company. And yet 8 years in, here I am, and I put in a ton of work and a ton of time understanding the category. And frankly, I think at this point, I understand better for you beverages as well as many of the folks that have been doing it for 30, 40, and 50 years. And so, again, it's all about your dedication and your commitment to improving and learning, and that's what's going to make the difference. And, on that note, one of my favorite anecdotes is about a French gentleman who just broke the world cycling record for over 100 years old. He's 104 years old. And at 100, he broke the record, then went on an intense training program. 4 years later, broke his own record by several miles. And essentially, it was the idea that there's no age at which we can stop improving. It's just about focus, commitment, and that desire. And we can keep getting better even at 100.
That's awesome. So, Paddy, I got a couple more questions for you before I can let you go. But first, I have to thank the sponsor of this episode. So this episode is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you're going to sound amazing. Podfly does all the heavy lifting and the technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool people like Paddy Spence. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know a lot of you do, jump over to podfly.net/coolthings and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. So, Paddy, I call this show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What's the coolest thing you're doing in your business right now?
One of the coolest things we're doing in our business right now is working with young athletes in a couple of different sports. And for me, I was never good at sports. I just loved them. And it wasn't about talent. It was just about trying to be the best me that I could be. So we're a sponsor of USA Weightlifting. And so for young Americans who are getting into Olympic lifting, that's a great opportunity. And similarly, we're a big sponsor of the CrossFit Games. So we have a young woman we sponsor whose name is Kayla Stefano, 17-year-old girl. And she's been the 2-time winner of the CrossFit Games as a teenager. Just an incredible young woman. And to see these kids change their lives through athletics, regardless of their talent level, is just so inspiring. And so that's the most exciting thing I'm doing right now, is working with young people to help transform their lives, not just through exercise, but also what they put into their bodies.
So I love to ask, before we sign off, I love to ask the entrepreneurs who come on this show, I love to ask them who they admire out there as an entrepreneur that they think's cool. Because we could talk about Paddy, we could talk about Zevia and your employees all day long. But I think entrepreneurs, I think they're observers. So I love to know, who do you see out there where you think that entrepreneur, he or she, they're doing something cool?
Great question. Well, there are a lot of great companies that I really admire. One of the folks that I really look up to, somebody who's changed the way America eats, frankly, is a gentleman named Mark Ratliff. And Mark was the founder of Horizon Organic Dairy. It's the first national organic dairy product company. He also was the founder of one of the first and largest natural products retail chains called Alfalfa's, which later became Wild Oats. Mm-hmm. What's so incredible to me about Mark is here's a guy who started multiple incredible companies. He's later on in his career, he's in his late 60s, and yet he's not slowing down. And he's working with young entrepreneurs to help them find a way to create that next new solution to help repair our food system and the products that we're putting into our bodies. So that's a guy that I just look up to. I say, wow. 69, 70 years old, he's still relentlessly innovating. He's still focused on improving the health of America through the foods we eat and the beverages we consume.
So I'm going to have to go look him up because that fits right into my make age 50 to age 75 the best years of your life. I'm going to have to get him as a guest on this show.
Absolutely. Mark's an incredible guy, and frankly, he's changed the world. A lot of people don't know it.
That's awesome. So, Paddy, if somebody's listening to this and they think, I got to know more about this guy, he's impressed me, or they're just looking for an alternative to Coke and Pepsi, and they're really looking for something that's going to taste good and yet, be healthier for them. How do they find out about you? How do they find out about Zevia?
Well, you can find out about Zevia on our website, www.zevia, Z-E-V as in Victor, IA.com. Again, it's Paddy Spence. I'm our CEO. And, I always encourage people, Tom, to reach out. You can reach out to me at Paddy, P-A-D-D-Y, at Zevia.com. Be persistent. I do get a lot of emails, but, I love to talk to people about their journey and their life and applying whatever lessons I can to help others. So it's been so great to be on today. Really appreciate it. Again, congrats on your sugar reduction journey, and I really appreciate the time.
No, you've been a great guest, and you've got me inspired, and I know that a lot of people who listen, and I actually liked the part where you said, go ahead and email me. Here's my email address. I mean, I like people who try to say yes. That's one of my other mantras in this 50 to 75 is I'm just going to say yes to more things. It's how I ended up jumping off the stratosphere in Las Vegas. It's how I ended up doing a TEDx talk with 3 weeks notice because someone had dropped out. Yes leads you to more opportunities. So I like the fact you just email me, but you add a key thing and you said you got to be persistent, because the truth is I have the same problem. People will email me one time and I'm traveling and I don't get back and they'll be like, oh, he's a jerk. No, if you just emailed twice, I would have noticed it. Sometimes it's hard to keep that going. So I like that little caveat. If you want to reach out to somebody like Paddy, don't be like spamming the hell out of them, but you might need to be a little persistent because most people will answer you. So I think that was a little hidden.
Well, exactly. And we have a term we talk about at work called professionally persistent. What that means is you're following up at regular increments, but you're not abusive.
Right. Don't be
abusive.
Hey, it's Wednesday. Remember I emailed you on Tuesday. Nope, that's too soon. So, hey, Paddy, it's been a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving us of your time to be here on Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. And to those of you who listen, go check us out on Facebook, Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Twitter is @CoolPodcast. If you're a regular listener or even a first-time listener and you like the show, go over to iTunes and leave a review. That makes my whole day better when there's a new review. It's one of the ways we get found is people read those reviews. And if you subscribe to the show, iTunes likes to give a little more boost to letting people know it's there when they search for business and entrepreneurial-related podcasts. And in the last couple of weeks, I've had like 4 or 5 people reach out who wanted to learn more about speaking professionally and making money doing it. There's a lot of programs out there that are really expensive and they kind of are leading you along. So if you're interested in that, I'm trying to put together kind of a pilot program. It's not going to cost a lot of money. Reach out to me at tom@tomsinger.com, and I'll let you in on the pilot coaching program to see if I can help you out there, because it's odd when you get inquired by about 8 people in a handful of days, the entrepreneurial brain says, there might be something that can be useful here. So if that interests you, reach out to me. I'll tell you more. Hey, we're going to be back in a couple of days with an interview with somebody just as fascinating and just as cool as Paddy Spence. I know that seems hard. Like, where are you ever going to find somebody like that? But we always do. But in the meantime, I'm going to challenge you. Go out there and have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at TomSinger.